Hello. Back in the 1970s, I was living in a small town in Buckinghamshire and was in fellowship in a Brethren assembly in the town. Now, for those of you who don't know how a Brethren assembly works in any detail, on a Sunday morning, the service is known as the breaking of bread, and it's an open service, which means that any person feeling led by the Spirit can give out a hymn, pray, read a passage of Scripture, and talk to it briefly. And it goes on until a climax when we are all really feeling strongly about our gratitude to our God and to Jesus for his sacrifice on the cross, that we then celebrate the communion. Then after communion, there's usually about 10 minutes left of the service, and that can be a hymn, or maybe someone will come and talk to us with some encouragement for a few minutes. Anyway, one Sunday morning after communion, a young fellow down at the front got up and said, "Could we sing hymn number 343, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross?" And that sounded a good thing to do, so there was the picking up of hymn books and rustling through the pages to find 343. And the young man went on to read the first verse, and then he said, "Do you know, I hate this hymn." Suddenly the rustling of pages stopped, and you could almost hear the clicking of eyebrows going up all the way around the room. What? He hates this hymn, this old and well-loved hymn, one of the few in our hymn book that's real poetry instead of doggerel. What is he on about? Anyway, he went on to explain himself, and he didn't really hate it, but it worried him. And the cause of his worry was to be found in the last verse. Now, just to remind you, the last verse says this: "Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love, so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all." And there was the rub as far as Graham was concerned. That was the lad's name. He found that the demand to go give back to God his life, his soul, and everything about him was a big ask. And it is a big ask, and he was absolutely right to be worried. Saying he hated it was probably not a good thing. It didn't go down very well. My parents were staying with us that weekend, and my father fulminated about this hating business all the way home afterwards. But anyway, it's calmed down after a while. But this is the thing. My soul, my life, my all. That's what it's suggesting that we need to give back to God. And you might say, well, yes, but this is only a hymn. Well, yes, that's quite true. But on the other hand, in Romans 12, Paul says to us that we should offer our bodies a living sacrifice, for that is our reasonable service and is wholly acceptable to God. So our bodies comprise everything that about us. Our bodies contain our brain, our heart, our souls are living in there, and the whole of us is therefore to be given over to God as a living sacrifice. Now, I don't know how many people that you have come across in your Christian life who have actually done that, given their bodies, their whole lives across to God. I can think possibly of one or maybe two who might have got close to it. Certainly I have failed in that regard. And I suspect that several of you listening this morning might have to confess that you have not quite managed to give all of that back to God. So, does that mean that we should abandon the whole concept? That, I think, might be like a young person learning to play the piano, for example. And they've done nicely and they've got up to about grade 5 or grade 6 and they're progressing very well. And then suddenly a kind person takes them to a concert by Lang Lang and they sit enthralled for a couple of hours at the masterly playing coming from that gentleman. And they go home afterwards and say, I shall never be able to play like that. I might as well give up now. And of course that would be very silly because you have your own levels of expectation in that field and the amount of enjoyment that you get from it. And it's the same with our sacrifice to God. If we can manage 10% of the whole, or 20%, or whatever percentage, surely it's worth giving that back to God rather than to give nothing and to abandon the whole project. And so this morning, really, all I'm saying to you is this. We fail to attain the challenge of giving back soul, life, and everything to God. But that doesn't mean to say that we should give nothing. Let's strive, each one of us, to give back to Him all that we can, conscious of the fact that it was Jesus who gave His all for our salvation. God bless you.